Hello, my friends. It is day 254. We're reading Ezekiel chapter 46 through Ezekiel chapter 48. Before we get into our recap, I want to thank you for taking a moment to check out this video. Hopefully, you are finding the yearly Bible reading program to be incredibly helpful, enjoyable, and a great blessing to you as you read and study the Bible. If you have not yet accepted the invitation, please take a moment to check out the video or the description box below. There you'll find the link that will take you directly to the YouVersion Bible app, where you can join a number of people reading the Bible every single day and leaving feedback on the things they're learning. So friends, listen, we've made another accomplishment. We've met another goal. And that goal is finishing another book of the Old Testament, one of the largest books of the Old Testament. So give yourselves credit, kudos to you. All right, give yourself a round of applause there because you have crossed another milestone, and we're just that much closer to finishing the Old Testament and jumping into the New Testament. And so we're excited about that. Now, listen, the book of Ezekiel is one of those special books. It's one of the books. There's some books in the Bible that you can read, and then there are some books in the Bible you have to study. And the book of Ezekiel is one of those books because it is similar to what we discover in the book of Revelation. There are so many allegorical, metaphorical, idiomatic sayings that have deeper roots in other things that were written and said in the Old Testament, or even just said in the common vernacular and the common language of the people of the time in which this book was written. And unless you are aware of those things, then you probably will have a hard time reading it. But another thing that makes it more difficult to understand at times is just the way in which he's communicating. I think one of the things that you want to keep in mind is that, particularly as we think through this temple idea that Ezekiel has, it's very different from the models that we've seen in the Old Testament. Moses gave us a model of the tabernacle, which obviously was intended to be implemented literally and physically as he saw it. Solomon was responsible for building a temple that was to be implemented physically and literally as David drew the plans and imagined it and saw it. One of the things that's interesting about Ezekiel's temple is that it never gives us a command to build it. Like, there's never a command to build it. Literally in chapter 40, what it says is that Ezekiel saw in a vision a city, and then the city evolves, and then the temple within that city evolves, but there are no commands to build it, which means it's not meant to literally build or physically build as much as it is intended to metaphorically give an understanding of what the fellowship of God's people will be in the day in which he restores them. What will it be like whenever God decides to bring his people back together, as so commonly prophesied by Ezekiel and all the other prophets? What will that look like? What will this new convening of the saints be like? What will be the parameters? What will be the characteristics in comparison to the old temple and the old fellowship and the old system? So more than looking for actual personalities to fulfill the roles and the designations within this temple, what we are to gather from it is an understanding of the character of this new fellowship, this new institution, if you will, that Ezekiel is seeing in this vision. All right. So one of the things we find is that Ezekiel's temple, the reimagined institution, if you will, or model of worship and gathering, includes a prince. And the reason this prince is here is because there has been all sorts of terrible things happening in God's temple, yet there has never been anyone there to enforce order. So when people commonly in the past have tried to analyze who this prince is, many people have concluded that it was the Messiah. But the issue is that there are some characteristics that actually refute the fact that he is the Messiah. Yes, he may be a Davidic figure, but what that essentially means is that he is one who has the right to rule or have authority because he's from the house of David. Doesn't necessarily mean he's the Messiah, but it does mean that he has the authority to rule. And where is he ruling? He's ruling in God's temple. So what we find is that in chapter 44, when the prince is mentioned, he has one distinct role, it seems. His role is to purify the operation of that temple, which has been so drastically desecrated and willfully desecrated, that is by the will of God's own people. It has been desecrated by the presence and the operation of strangers. And you see this in verse 7. You see this in verse 12. And you see the idolatry that comes from this sort of fellowship and participation of both Jew and stranger. So what do we need there? We need a governing figure who can sit in the temple as if it is a creation itself and govern by a law the things that happen there in accordance to God's will. So that's what we have going on there. All right. So but then there's something more interesting about this temple that shows us the character of the next body of people or the temple itself. You understand that this is more so a form of worship, a form of community, a form of family. This is what temple represents. This is what all temple language represents. In chapter 47, we find something that we never saw before. In all the other tabernacle temple systems, we find that these models were distinctly preserved and left for the Jews, God's people, right? There was no tolerance, no, should we say, there was no allowance, if you will. Don't know why I couldn't get that out, but there was no availability of the Gentiles to walk into the temple, have any presence, have any rights, enjoy anything that the Jews would enjoy. But this temple, this metaphorical reimagined temple permits for the stranger to come in and actually have a home. And you see this in chapter 47. This is as the boundaries are laid. It says in the chapter 47, verse 22, it says, distribute the land as an allotment for yourselves and for the foreigners who have joined you and are raising their families among you. Look at what he says. They will be like native born Israelites to you and will receive an allotment among the tribes. So you never saw this kind of thing in the old city models and the old temple models. But in this model, where Ezekiel is reimagining the city of God and the temple of God, the stranger, the foreigner, has native-like rights, native-born Israelite rights. And he says they will be like native-born Israelites to you and will receive an allotment among the tribes. These foreigners are to be given land within the territory of the tribe and with whom they now live. I, the sovereign Lord, have spoken. So you can see, again, this is not simply just like a literal go and build this. There's no directions to do that. There are no directions to do that. But this is a vision about what it will look like when God's true temple is built, functioning, and as it is designed to be. This is what we get. And that's the beauty of what we read in this passage. So the divided land, all of that, it has the nuances of the old models, but the whole point of it is to show us, as it were in verse 35, that when this is all done, we will be able to say the Lord is here. And in some way, form, or fashion, when we read in the New Testament, we can sense that the fulfillment of this temple has been committed. It has been done, not in forms of building an actual temple, but in the way of building a temple out of God's people, making them a habitation of God's presence, and making it a means by which the foreigner, the stranger, the ethnic divided, the ethnic neglected population now have rights to come right on in as if they were native-born citizens to enjoy the benefit and the beauty of this city of God. It is such an incredible, such an incredible thing. So when you read the book of Ezekiel, you have to just wrap your mind around that, and you'll be able to see exactly what's going on. All right, friends. Well, I hope that helps. Let me know what you're thinking in the comment box below. Leave your comments there, and hopefully it'll stimulate some great conversation. Until next time, thank you for watching. Take care. God bless. And remember, live by the word.